Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I could just.
Yeah, I think they were calling us.
Carlos, what's your name?
It's Posse.
Ashley, nice to
meeting
meet
you.
you. Where's the name from?
Finnish.
Sure.
Finnish.
Yes.
Oh, are you
Yeah.
Finnish too, or?
I was born and raised there, but went to
wow.
high school and college and grad school in the U.S.
Nice. Oh, I see. So you're born and raised there, but then you did most of your school here.
Right. Most of my life has been
Most
spent
of my
there.
life.
Yeah. All right.
Sure.
We should get you a chair.
American Idol
for you.
betting panel.
I think we need one more glass of water, actually.
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
So we're about to begin. I was a high school teacher. All these people like hiding out and sitting in the back. And all the way from Colorado to talk to me. And I really liked it. A little more fun. So I can see your face. And we'll be a little bit more.
That'd be great. Thank you, Russell.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. Excellent crowd. You obeyed directions well. Hi, my name is Jim Nail. I'm here to moderate our session today on reducing consumption and local solutions and celebrating the winners that we have with us today. So it's a very exciting panel to hear from these brilliant people who have these wonderful ideas on how to attack this huge problem, really at kind of a grassroots level, and build up from there. I am the president of Massachusetts Interfaith Power and Light, volunteer position with them. And I think I was tapped for this because we too work at that kind of grassroots level, and we work at that idea of how do you get individuals and small communities to really tune into this issue and start taking whatever actions they can to make a difference, and then grow it and scale it from there. So we've got these three wonderful programs to talk about today. Let me, actually I'll quickly introduce and then ask each of my fellow panelists to introduce themselves. And then what we're going to do is we'll go through each of these ideas individually. We have a short video that gives the highlights of what the idea is. We're fortunate enough to have the leaders of those teams available. Jeff Hay, as you see there, is joining us virtually, so I'll ask them to chime in then and add a few comments or other ideas or new things that they're thinking about for their program after we see the video. And then the panelists will provide some feedback, ideas, suggestions, cautions, hopefully things, ideas, and tips that will help them become even more successful. So panelists, let's you just introduce each of yourselves very briefly. Carlos, why don't you start?
Sure. Just get closer to the mic.
Yeah, grab the mic there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Espinosa Toro, and I'm the lead organizer of the Jamaica Plain New Economy Transition, JPNet. Jamaica Plain New Economy Transition is an effort to build community resilience in JP and adjacent neighborhoods.
Thank you, Carlos. I'm Pasi Miettinen. I'm CEO of Sagewell Inc. here in Cambridge. So I came all the way 2 miles away from here, and I'm very glad to be here today. Our company does energy efficiency program marketing, and we do it through thermal imaging of cities from the ground. And we have been looking at the energy efficiency ecosystem for the last 5 years and looking at how to make those programs that exist already more efficient, as well as how to create new programs and unlock the energy efficiency potential the vast energy efficiency potential that exists in the United States.
Hi, my name is Valerie Karplus. I am here at MIT with the Joint Program on the Science and Policy of Global Change. I run a project called the China Energy and Climate Project, which is a partnership with a university in Beijing and Tsinghua University. And we are doing a lot of a range of projects really focused on understanding the impact of energy and climate policy in China. And I'm excited to be part of a grassroots panel because that really kind of complements the policy side of this all very well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us all today. So let's jump into this and let's get right into these programs. And one of the things I think is most interesting about these programs is though they're all trying to galvanize this grassroots kind of movement, they each attack it from a very, very different kind of perspective and using very different kinds of tools and techniques. This first one, coming to us from Calgary, uses a lot of high-tech stuff to look at how much energy homes use and then compare those things and get people kind of motivated by seeing how they compare to their neighbors. So let's take a look at that video.
My name is Dr. Jeff Hay. I'm a Geographic Information Scientist from the University of Calgary, Department of Geography, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And this is my research team. Our 2013 Climate Collab proposal is entitled, Whose Home is Wasting More Energy, Yours or Your Neighbor's? In Canada, buildings account for approximately 35% of all emitted greenhouse gases, 33% of Canada's total energy production, and consume 50% of Canada's natural resources. Space heating provides one of the best opportunities for energy efficiency improvements. However, the most solid obstacle, well, it's simply a lack of interest. This is little surprise when one considers what does energy efficiency really look like, where is energy efficiency located, and how will residents know that their home is energy efficient, not the energy-saving devices inside it. The solution we propose is HEAT, Heat Energy Assessment Technologies, a free GeoWeb service designed to visualize the amount, location, and cost of invisible waste heat leaving your home, communities, and cities as easily as clicking on your house in Google Maps. Key features include interactive web-based heat maps, heat scores, hotspots, and related heat savings and greenhouse gas reduction estimates at the house, community, and city level. Specific users include homeowners and renters, contractors, service providers offering energy efficiency solutions, construction companies verifying their build quality, and real estate agents seeking energy-conscious clients. The monitoring of the service may also provide support for municipal energy efficiency, ecological footprint, and low-carbon community programs. The HEAT project builds on 4 years of research, $972,000 in awarded research funding, the training of 11 highly qualified persons, and many publications and presentations, including a recent May 2013 TED Talk. Currently, interactive waste heat maps, hotspots, and savings estimates are freely available online for 37,914 single residential Calgary homes. Building on this success, we propose a new 3-year research program that will support 18 highly qualified persons at an estimated total cost of $4.6 million. This will allow completion of 3 single-year phases that will enable the HEAT project to be scaled up and applied to cities with populations greater than 1 million inhabitants, be implemented over time to establish monitoring programs, and to initiate safe heat competitions between and within different communities and cities. Our initial objective is to first apply this project in Canada, then expand to the USA, Europe, and other cold climate cities worldwide. By scaling up the heat consumption results from 37,000 Calgary homes to the full city of Calgary with over 330,000 individual single-dwelling residences, we estimate total municipal savings for natural gas per year of approximately $33.5 million and a reduction of 198,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents per year. HEAT's mission is to integrate leading-edge geospatial technologies and key behavioral science findings to show what urban energy efficiency looks like, where it's located, what it costs, and what to do about it. We believe that if people could see the waste heat they generate, and if they knew how much it costs financially and to the environment, that they would want to take action. And we want to show them how. If you're interested in finding out whose home is wasting more energy, yours or your neighbor's, we would invite you to visit us at www.safeheat.co. Co for community, Co for collaboration, and Co because the car was $25,000. Thank you very much.
True story.
Now, do we still have Jeff with us?
Yep, I'm
Great.
here.
Let's
Thank you.
plug him in here and see if we can have a little bit of conversation with him.
Hi, folks.
Hi, Jeffrey. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's an absolutely fascinating combination of technology, as you said, behavioral science, and other things to make a topic that is kind of boring to a lot of people more interesting and motivating.
Thank you.
So, do you have any other comments to share? Any new thoughts you've been having through the course of the competition, or as you've been listening to other sessions on how you're going to build up the program?
Sure, we're actually involved in quite a few different components at the moment. We're developing what are referred to as Volunteer Geographic Information Systems, or VGIs. So these allow people to actually look at the image, but instead of just looking at the image and interacting with it, they can actually provide us information about it. Sometimes when we're looking at a thermal image, in some cases, there will be trees overhanging a building, for instance. If we're using a GIS database and we simply use a cookie cutter sort of approach, and we just take the GIS database and put it directly on top of the thermal image, well, in some cases it will take the tree, and the tree has a different thermal emissivity than the rooftop does. And we spend a lot of time doing corrections for this emissivity of different rooftop material types, but not of the vegetation. And so what we can do is we can engage people to actually tell us where are their trees. And not only does it tell us where their trees are, but then we can start developing metrics about the probability of trees falling down on their houses. And so there's fires occurring, getting mixed up with power lines. There's a whole host of different things that are associated with it. But what we're trying to do is engage people more. And we're getting some really great feedback. Just a couple of days ago, we got feedback from people that are in our demo package that are using the VGI that we've already developed, and they're really excited about it. From the project itself, from the MIT group, people that were evaluating us suggested that we engage with gamification. So that's actually, we didn't make a game out of it, but we have an opportunity for people to come in, they see their house, they can select their rooftop material type, and then they get a little tick mark, and actually after a while it becomes quite addictive, and you start going around trying to find out all the other different types of materials. Now there are challenges with VGIs, but we're sorting out a lot of that kind of information. So that's a good start.
Great. Well, let me bring Posse into the conversation to begin with, because obviously, Posse, there's some very close similarities to the business you're doing, and I'm sure you've got some experience with how do you use this type of imagery to get people's attention, and then how do you convert that into actually doing the kind of improvements that will save energy?
Indeed, thank you, and Jeff, very nice to meet you here virtually, and all the best luck to you guys. It's been very interesting to obviously watch the video and the things that you guys are doing, because we have been in this space marketing energy efficiency for the last 5 years, and using thermal imaging, except doing it from the ground. So we've had an opportunity to find what the limitations in reality are in terms of technological approaches, as well as how to get people to actually act. And the hard part in the big picture, again, I'm looking at this from the U.S. perspective and not necessarily from a Canadian perspective, but the U.S. perspective, the big picture trends that we are facing and the things that you guys address are, it is very difficult to get people to engage. Once you get them to engage, you have a chance of actually getting results. But getting the best houses to participate is very, very difficult. And any method, that whether it's through the thermal imaging or direct communication or social media or crowdsourcing, any and all of these media and methods are extremely valuable because they get people engaged. And in fact, one of the things that we've learned along the way is that it is not often about the technology. And in fact, I might suggest de-emphasizing the technology and focus more on the people, the crowdsourcing aspect, and the aspects into how do you get people to engage and actually do the results, because that is at the end of the day, all the analysis that all of us do, whether it's through analyzing utility data, there are very fine companies who do that, or you analyze buildings through thermal imagery or any other metric or method. At the end of the day, it's not the analysis that matters, it's the conversion, the completion of the work that matters. And so as I watched the video, I was very intrigued on some of the technology focus and some of the things, and I was just curious also what kinds of things you have done to actually see the improvements being driven through these programs, because often what we find is that the technology isn't enough. You need to have some method to get people to actually participate, and curious about your comments as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Those are great comments, and we share many similar aspects of it. What we're focusing on at the moment are actually the very simple technology components. Well, I say simple, they're not simple. We're using a brand new sensor that we were the first organization in the world, to the best of our knowledge, to actually use this sensor to be able to capture thermal imaging. The sensor comes at a pretty good price tag. So we need to make sure that what we're actually getting is correct, because your comment about engaging people is very apropos, but we're still pretty early in the stage, because what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that our science and the technology behind our science are correct, so that when we give somebody a pretty picture, when we give them an opportunity to be engaged, that the information we're providing them will be as correct as possible. I mean, if you're using thermal imaging, something that I'm sure you're aware of is the challenges with emissivity. You can have the same elements on your rooftop, or in your case on the side of your building, projecting or emitting the same sort of relative temperature. So those need to be corrected for the material type to be able to really get a good estimate of where the temperature is that you're getting, or what the temperature is that you're getting from the different materials. And this is not trivial. I'm not sure how you guys are doing it. I'd be very interested to find out, but we're finding it, it's part of our secret sauce.
Indeed, and in fact, I appreciate those comments, because when we look at we look at it as an ecosystem. How do you get people engaged? How do you get them to participate? If you give people, from a big picture point of view, there's a big difference between precision and accuracy. We can give a lot of really precise info to people and not be accurate at all about interpreting what the issues are with their house. So we have to be very careful about drawing the lines. What can we reasonably claim from any technology, whether it's thermal imaging or an analysis of bill data or anything else, and stay within the boundaries of what's reasonable to claim about that sort of a technological aspect. If you approach life that way, people will forgive you often for the errors, for the benefit of being able to draw attention to the fact that there's something going on in the building that deserves further attention. And that mere fact alone, so you got their attention, you got their curiosity. If you don't overplay the hand or overpromise, and you basically say, we think there's something that is worthy of actually investigating further, that is often enough to get people to participate. So we have a desire, and we're at MIT, we have a desire to apply technology on every problem, but not every problem deserves technology. And that's why the things that what I've seen you guys promote there on the social, not necessarily on the social media side, but on terms of social engagement. And sometimes it's one-on-one engagement at the kitchen table, sometimes it's through other media. Those kinds of things are the ones that actually make the results happen, and that's where the efficiency happens. It happens at the kitchen table. It doesn't happen remotely in abstract or in a technological sense.
Yeah. Well, Carlos, let me put you on the spot a bit then, because Jeff talked about their ideas of having community competitions, ways that will make this more than just a personal decision. From your vantage point in community organizing, brainstorm a little bit. What are some good ideas for how to sort of generate that excitement around something like this?
Well, before I answer that, I just wanted to ask a quick question about when we're talking about reaching out to folks with this experiment, these devices, what kind of demographics we're thinking about. And the reason I mentioned this is because when I work in Jamaica Plain, Roxbury, in the areas, we're specifically talking about upper middle class, for the most part, white folks, and we're also talking about low-income folks of color. And I think one of the things that I would say in terms of brainstorming is we are currently exploring ways of engaging that goes across class and race. And for us to get people excited about that is very important. And we believe that if we can engage folks in that manner, we really have a comprehensive strategy of how to excite folks. So I go back to what Pasi mentioned about people are very important to understand that. In addition to that, I also would say that there's a concept of creating jobs and livelihoods, which is really interesting. I'm just trying to, ask a question to to Jeff about, maybe how many jobs may be created by using this device, or how many jobs may be created by creating a community competition, or by putting these devices in at the city level or at the governance level, and training folks to actually use this, and not necessarily to just put the device on someone's homes, but actually thinking about what does it mean when you're doing that, and how you're engaging the individual. It's not just something that is out there, and I'm just saving energy, but what does it really mean? So,
yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. So there's a couple of great comments there. So, like I said, we're still early in the process. In fact, because of this MIT program, we actually took the first step and did all the due diligence and said, okay, we're going to find a company now because we're being contacted by people who are using our technology just in the beta stage, and they want to know where to go next. I'm an information scientist. I can tell you where the thermal energy is leaving. I can tell you I can give you an estimate of how much it costs, but I can't tell you, I can't tell you how to fix it. That's not my area of expertise. So we've recently organized, we've hooked up with a company that have come to us from a great pedigree. They've been doing energy efficiency retrofits for a number of clients that we're familiar with, including the University of Calgary and some of the technology companies in the city. And so they're the first group that we're actually saying, okay, guys, we hope that there's business here for you. So we're just in the process now of talking with them about how do we actually figure out who's using the technology, who's coming to you and getting the technology, or who's looking at our technology and then getting their homes fixed. And to answer the idea about the jobs, we don't know yet. All I know is that my home still needs to be fixed. I'm still leaking energy from my home, and I know now where it is. I just need to find the right group to do it. In fact, this project is around getting this organization to come and fix my home, or to be able to tell me at least where the energy is leaking. So we actually perceive that there'd be thousands of jobs, literally thousands of jobs, if you were to fly this technology and perform it in all of the cities in Canada, and only use a very small percent of all of the people that are actually in there. I'm reading some of the information from Sagewell talking about the numbers of people that are actually 5 to 10% of people that are actually engaged in getting energy efficiency retrofits or getting assessments done. Well, the city of Calgary has 350,000 individual single-dwelling residences. We have 11,000 eco-energy retrofits that have already been done by the government of Canada in the city. There's only a very small number, but there's probably a very large number of homes still available. Using our technology, we can click on a map and we can see the hottest house in the city. We can see the coolest house in the city. We can see the hottest house in every single community. Those could be targeted individuals or targeted groups that we could send an email to them with a link to their home. Someone could actually put it into the mail, but then they're going to want to know, how do they get it fixed? So we need to be able to and create an environment that's seamless, from the technology that tells you where the problem is, or even represents what we think the problem might be, to the real solution that needs to be done. And we're just starting to work with people in social sciences right now, because I don't have the answers about how many people are going to be engaged. I need to have people that are going to be working with us. We're doing the technology portion, and now we're reaching out with green technology builders, and the next step will be actually to work with social scientists so they can help us to understand these parts. I'd like to be able to say thousands and thousands exactly, but I can't. I don't have that data yet. In fact, the folks from Sagewell probably know much better than me.
Just one addition to that point, though. In terms of demographics, and Carlos's point, what's very interesting to us is that when you look at the people who participate in programs, and then you try to see where the efficiency opportunities are, as well as you compare it to, are you able to reach these people? Many of the opportunities are in low-income neighborhoods. That's kind of obvious. But when you actually look at where efficiency takes place, it's often in the middle-class neighborhoods. Wealthy people, for example, don't necessarily participate in programs. The few $1,000s that the programs grant may not be material. So when you actually look at how these programs are working and who's participating, where the efficiencies happen, very interesting dilemmas happen. One of them is there are a lot of programs that have social motivations, particularly targeting low-income households or elderly or others. But if you don't get the efficiency out of there, one of the challenges in all these programs is that if you're just ruthlessly looking for efficiency, you can get it, but it will come from very targeted segments of the population, and the other populations may not get as much attention. And there are a lot of dichotomies and a lot of dynamics that come into, and competing interests that come into play. And part of the conference here is to basically say, how do you break through some of the barriers? How do you address some of the things? And sometimes they are very difficult social barriers and norms and expectations that we have as a society as to how we should be running these programs. that may be, interestingly enough, contrary to the actual getting efficiency done. And there are a lot of competing interests that have to be met, and technology is part of it. And that's where I think Carla's work and community work that is being done actually bridges those gaps.
Yeah. Valerie, any thoughts or comments to share with Jeff?
Sure, yes. Jeff, I think this is a terrific stuff, and from an academic perspective, of course, you're making a real stride towards overcoming an information barrier, which is really important, of course, when we talk about conservation. And as so my experience, I guess, has been previously in looking at labeling, efficiency labeling. And so I was thinking as I kind of listened to your presentation about some applications that for your innovation in particular in the area of labeling and bringing that information out to the public in a really effective way. I mean, have you thought about ways of reaching out either to landlords or real estate agents who might provide, for example, a rainbow-colored print of the home you're about to buy, and you would have a very in labeling fuel economy in vehicles, moving to these colored labels, which was a recent EPA effort in the U.S., Environmental Protection Agency effort, really made people much more aware of the fuel economy of vehicles they were buying. And so do you think about applications perhaps in that domain? I guess another question I had was, are there applications in industrial uses where you might have one single decision maker rather than a range of homeowners that you would need to reach in order to target large amounts of savings? And so these are just some thoughts that I think lend themselves to taking what you've developed and moving it out and having that impact on sort of the broader economy, to that specific point, I guess I wonder if your platform, as I understand it, is available for free. How willing are you to see lots of people making money off of this platform, and where does that sort of take this project in the longer term? So just some few engineering observations and questions from this end of the table. Thanks.
Great.
Wow. Okay. So I've got three questions that you've given me there. So there's great stuff. So thank you. So
yeah. And
colors,
Jeff, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to move to our next couple of things. So would love to hear your comments, but I think we're gonna have to move on. But hopefully you've got some good ideas and things from us.
The answer is yes.
Great. And we all wish you the best of luck and congratulations on your win here. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Great. We could probably go on talking about that all day. It's such a fascinating thing. But we've got another fascinating project here. So Shen-Yu, will you come up and join me here at the microphone? Totally different approach. We saw Jeff taking a lot of technology and using that technology to identify a very, very specific kind of problem in homes and help people to start to think about that. Shen-Yu's taking this perspective of, well, the problem isn't necessarily just about a home. The problem actually is with society. And the problem is with the whole expectation of what people aspire to as they, particularly in China, get more wealth, become middle class. And as we know, if we don't change some of those expectations, there's simply no way to support a global population that has these kinds of aspirations. So how do you change those aspirations? Let's take a look at the video, and then we'll hear from Shen-Yu.
Hi, my name is Peggy Liu, MIT Course 6. And 6 years ago, I founded JUICE to accelerate the greening of China. 3 years ago, JUICE started the China Dream Initiative to reimagine prosperity, reframe sustainability, and reshape consumerism. To help 1.3 billion Chinese see what a beautiful dream we can dream. And this is what we call 可悦梦想, a happy and harmonious dream. Today we have almost 500 million middle-class consumers, people who can buy a fridge and a TV and worry about the color of their sneakers. But by 2025, the consuming class will balloon to 800 million strong, and more houses, more cars, more steaks, more rings, more things for me cannot work for we. For 3 years, Juice has been bringing together partners around the world to shape the values of a new China Dream. And now China Dream has scaled to a national conversation. From Vogue to Tom Friedman in the New York Times to China Business News and now Xi Jinping, a new China Dream has captured our imagination across the country. Now to succeed in making the new China Dream a reality, we must show the dream in action, share the dream through trusted communities, seed it in media and ad campaigns, and we must change the social norms of what the heart of prosperity means. We've run a series of ideation workshops to co-create the China Dream. This is the way to engage people from different communities and to carefully curate the commonalities between prosperity and sustainability. We've tapped into the collective wisdom of sustainability experts, cultural experts, and storytellers. In fact, the workshop format was designed for us and led for us by top marketing agencies such as Saatchi & Saatchi S, Ogilvy, Edelman, Thin Air Factory. 3 years in, we've now shaped the China Dream. Safe food, air, and water, vibrant living, livable communities, and opportunities to move forward while drawing upon our past. Now we need to show the dream in action in people's daily lives. To make the China Dream come alive in people's imaginations, we need to work with photographers, videographers, artists, consumer brand managers, ad campaign managers, and TV producers. We need to show a new prosperity. For this is the new China Dream. While the majority of costs for this program are carried by a number of co-creation partners with their in-kind resources, Juice still needs financial support to hire managers full-time to help coordinate the many projects catalyzed by the China Dream. We also need long-term executive volunteers, experienced interns who can work with us for months at a time in China. China as a whole, from government to citizens, are all on board to build a greener, more sustainable China. One where we don't have skies that are gray, rivers red, and tap water yellow. Juice's China Dream Initiative is a bold, ambitious, but well thought out path to bringing our citizens on board this long green march. We hope that you'll support us today with a vote for China Dream for the MIT Climate Collab Award.
Great, great. So Chen-Yu, I understand you've got another mention today from Tom Friedman in the New York Times, and that not only is this a national conversation, but it's becoming an international conversation. So tell us a bit more about how it's evolving.
Thank you, everyone. So, yeah, today Thomas Friedman actually wrote an op-ed about Juice. So I want to give a little bit background about Juice China Dream, which we call in Chinese a harmonious, happy dream, compared to President Xi Jinping's China Dream. Because a lot of people ask this question to us, like, what's the difference between President Xi's China Dream and your China Dream? So Juice, as Peggy mentioned in the video, started China Dream consumer behavior research in 2010. And it was not until last year, October last year, when Thomas Friedman visited us in Shanghai, and he went back and wrote an article called China Needs Its Own Dream, which he calls out President Xi, what is the dream, what is a lifestyle for the emerging middle class in China. And 6 weeks later, China's Time magazine actually wrote China's equivalent of Time magazine wrote a feature on our China Dream, and then in November, President Xi started to call China Dream. So we purposely call our China Dream a happy and harmonious dream, because we think if we just call it Chinese Dream, it's too nationalistic and political. And we are trying to reimagine prosperity and to activate new social norms at giga scale. So we are more about a sustainable lifestyle. So if you can think about it as a personalized green environmental dream of the Chinese dream that President Xi has. And so today, actually, Thomas Friedman actually just visited Juice a month ago again, and today he actually calls President Xi again to provide institutional support for sustainable China Dream, which is the Juice China Dream, and that will be, it's actually really big because that will provide more institutional support. And as a little bit background, I think what makes Juice really unique is that sustainable consumerism, China Dream, is part of our 3 pillars. And the other part is we've been running mayor training programs for the last 6 years, and we've trained over 600 governmental officials on building sustainable urbanization, so that we have direct outreach and channel to influence the key decision makers. So on the topic of China Dream, we actually run a full workshop on sustainable lifestyle, where we brought them, like our sponsors, to show products where they can actually see them in person instead of just listening about these ideas. And I also want to touch a little bit on how it becomes an international conversation. So after 3 years of research and shaping the dream with experts across the world, we actually developed a Dream in a Box methodology or license. So as Peggy mentioned in the video, the first part is shape the dream, right? We ran a series of workshops where experts from different fields, from urban planners, architects, filmmakers, or artists, they all come together, and with the help from professional advertising agency, marketing agency, we shape the dream, China Dream, and then we show them in action. That's the second part. So now we're at the activation stage where we work with Ecolab to create sustainable restaurant guides. We're building crowdsourcing for suggestion for neighborhoods where everyone can be a voice in their community. That's part of an app we actually developed with Augmentum that has now gathered over 1,500 users and was used officially in the Shanghai Design Week. So those are 2 examples of show the dream in action, and then the next part is share the dream in trust the community, and then seed in advertising media campaign. So these 4 steps become a Dream in a Box methodology, where it has actually spawned UK Dream and the New American Dream in Occidental College, and they're going to run a TEDx just on the New American Dream next year. So it has become an international conversation. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Valerie, you've obviously got a lot of experience in China as well, so what thoughts and observations can you share?
Thank you. Yes, so Cheng-Yu, that was terrific introduction. I think I'd only maybe add to that just maybe a little bit of perspective on China, and sort of a lot of people have the preconception, I think, that China is very top-down in the way that it carries out initiatives to, say, shape energy use and control greenhouse gas emissions. However, I think this is an example of an organization that is really working at the grassroots level from the bottom up to truly change the sort of the values and help people kind of connect back with maybe some of their classical or cultural historical ideals, which I think has a wonderful effect of building community in addition to making people aware of their consumption patterns. I think right now China has announced a cap on total energy use. There is very little information exactly on how this would be accomplished. So this doesn't even doesn't exclude all of the low carbon sources. This actually is total energy use in 2015, and I think it's going to be initiatives like this that will contribute to achieving those goals, or at least pushing the country in sort of that direction. I guess I have a couple of questions for you about the model, and given it's so multifaceted, as you think about ways of taking sort of the individual initiatives around food safety, clean water, clean air, consumption, do you envision keeping this within a single organization, or actually spinning off or inspiring smaller organizations and sort of building on some of the latent entrepreneurial talent that exists in mainland China today? I think there may be some great opportunities opportunities there. And then my other question is, I guess, as there's growing awareness about food safety, product safety, sort of very immediate concerns for households, can you leverage on some of the trends and the increasing importance that's being placed on, say, for example, food safety in restaurants, in purchased goods, in baby food, to make your message have sort of immediate practical appeal to the average Chinese consumer? I guess I know every time I go to a mall in China, it's completely packed, and so reaching out to the consumers that are sort of moving into that very consumerist lifestyle may be a challenge for this organization. So I'm curious what kind of outreach strategies you use to reach those populations.
Thank you for your comments and questions. And to answer the first question about whether we wanted to be adopted by more organizations and kind of inspire more entrepreneurs, actually, this is exactly what we want to do, because JUICE is a small organization. We're a convening organization. We want JUICE to be a launch pad for ideas. If our China Dream campaign initiative can inspire more people to take action, to work on real projects along the same line to activate new social norms in sustainable consumption, this is exactly what we want to achieve. And we want it to be at a point where it's widely adopted enough that JUICE itself is not needed. So as you see, we have now been working with like partners across the nation and also across the globe. Yeah.
Carlos, let me bring you in at this point, because your community organizing experience. How can JUICE leverage some of the, basic practices and things here to spread this message?
Yeah, I actually just want to say I'm very overwhelmed. I mean, this is really fascinating, to make such a change of behavior and social engagement at that level. One of the things that I was jotting down as I was listening to the presentation was at the level of engagement, when you're bringing all these folks together, individuals, companies, and so I'm just wondering how that might happen, or maybe there's some visions and explorations about how that may happen. And the reason is we're also here in the U.S. thinking about, we're constantly exploring about ways of engagement, convening, how to better engage individuals into the green movement. I just wanted, and we try to do it in a democratic manner as much as we can. I just wanted to know if there's some, visions or explorations about how that may happen, and at that high level. And the second question was, one thing that excites me a lot is that you mentioned there might be a conversation about social norms and values. And it sounds really exciting to see how these conversations take place. Who gets to decide what are the new social norms, and how do we steer, toward a green, sustainable future. So those are the couple of questions that I have.
I think to answer the first question, so JUICE has been involved in, invited to speak at a lot of different engagements where we've been in the same room. A small organization like us are in the same room with the CEO of Unilever, of Virgin Group, when like Peggy has been speaking about China Dream, kind of preaching this idea in what at Davos and this high-level convening conferences where the leaders of these big brands and companies are on board, and then they commit at the Davos and conference how they want to help us to become part of this, and then we go to their local Chinese branch and we work with them locally. And since JUICE started, we've always been a convening organization to bring together people from different fields, from the government to industry, in 2009, Peggy was awarded as Time Magazine Hero. One comment they had is that she has a magic phone book that she can call up anyone. So I think it definitely has to do with like the inspirations and this that getting people on board and feel excited, and everyone contribute resources to work together. We're all about collaboration, and we also use a lot of technology tools to kind of help scale. Because we actually run this nonprofit like a startup. Because Peggy's background is in technology, and we also have a technology partner where, as I mentioned, we built this civic engagement app that's actively being used. So I think running nonprofit like and building community like a startup also is part of it. And you mentioned about social norms and values and how they are formed. I think we've been running over 10 workshops where we bring together kind of the leading architects, urban planners, food experts, in different fields, and then they get together, brainstorm, and we think that visuals are so important that we can't just tell people what to do, and especially this dream is not in like it was not there before, did not exist, and in China everyone has been exposed to Western TV, Western advertising. We only think about Kim Kardashian consumerism. So how do we build a China dream? So we need to visualize it. If we can't just copy it if we don't see it. If we can't realize it, we don't have it, we don't shape it. So we have collected a lot of images. We work with a lot of marketing experts and culture experts to help curate the dream together. And we find that it's so important because our audience, the middle class in China, they're not necessarily buying the circular economy or low carbon transport or 350, they may not actually relate to that. But if we make the conversation and these new social norms locally relevant, that people who are housewives can actually understand, like, our sky is gray, our water is red. No one can stand that. A lot of people ask us, like, what is everyone in China on board of this? Like, China only cares about economic development. But can you imagine a future where you and your children are all wearing pollution masks every day? Can you imagine, as Valerie mentioned about food safety, that 18,000 dead pigs, virus pigs, are floating down the Huangpu River? I think that's how we tap into people's emotion, that everyone feels that they are part of this movement. They have a personal stake.
Again, I think we need to wrap this one up. This has been great. Pasi, any quick closing thoughts, observations?
Just very quick question. It's actually quite commendable that you were able to get the attention of people at that level, and the mind share is very difficult to get. But how do you measure success?
Yeah, we've been asked that question a lot because this is like a social norm movement. It's hard to measure. So the first is we want to reach to a lot of people. So we want to measure the pickup rate on social media, the mention of 和悦梦想, the happy, harmonious China dream. We reach 50 million of that on Chinese social media. And we want to have at least 10 cities to adopt China dream policies for their cities. And we have the platform of the mayor training to help us to achieve that. And we want to measure the number of mass media campaigns that actually relate to green and sustainable lifestyle. We are working with actors and actresses in China now and former soccer stars in China. And the number of China Dream workshops, we actually held over 10 workshops in the last 2 years. And also, as Valerie mentioned about individual projects, we want as many individual projects as possible. This is how we measure our success.
Good luck. We'll be looking for big numbers from you soon. I think that's a very exciting program. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
So Russell, come up and join me here. Our final project takes it all the way from this big, grand, let's change all of society approach that Shen Yu and her colleagues are doing to let's do it one person, get them right in there on the ground, one household at a time. So let's take a look at the Transition Lab video.
Why is the sustainability movement so sustainable? Why is it that without funding to subsidize good work rarely happens? It's not due to a shortage of good people with great ideas. Maybe it's because the global economy runs on a negative feedback loop where everyone from social entrepreneurs to big green groups are competing for money so that they have the economic freedom to do good and meaningful work. But the more time we spend competing for fewer resources, the less meaningful work actually gets done, and the cycle repeats. If we want a movement capable of creating a more just, healthy, and beautiful world, we need to break this cycle and develop truly self-sustaining approaches.
will also have to be accessible, viable, and replicable. The Transition Lab has started to cultivate.
Since 2010, we have helped ordinary people to secure $0 housing while empowering them to do what they love and build a better world. We've done this through developing positive feedback loops which intrinsically produce the actions needed to build a resilient future. We utilize existing resources in creative ways that form mutually beneficial relationships.
There are two core drivers of Power Transition Lab. First, our curriculum is taught by visionaries that here develop successful models of resilience in the areas of food production, social entrepreneurship, affordable housing, community engagement, and knowledge of self. Our students learn from and emulate those who have walked away from consumer culture, pioneer their own creative identities, and right livelihoods for a new economy.
Second, as our students become empowered with the skills to develop local resilience, they participate in our skilled resident course and exchange their expertise for housing and other basic needs without relying on dollar. For example, a current student receives housing in exchange for 10 hours a week building a permaculture garden and developing a time bank for the region. This way, these rent exchange actually becomes an asset to the larger community. The host receives ongoing support simply by putting her guest bedroom to use.
In this economic model, grassroots projects are supported by using existing resources, like a guest bedroom that will never run out, and even better by sharing housing and other infrastructure, both the host residents' carbon footprint at the grassroots level. The result is an incredibly positive feedback where skilled residents are directly supported by doing work as well.
Without the limitations of a failing dollar economy, students gain the freedom to follow their passions, create restorative economies, and enjoy their lives. This freedom is also the key to creating a movement of empowered citizens capable of passing essential laws like a carbon tax.
At this point, Transition Lab has only one limitation. We need more visionaries creating a resilient future by moving beyond the theoretical and into lived experience. So if you want to do what you love, work to reduce carbon emissions, and build a better future, come co-create with us at Transition Lab.
Yeah. So if I were to contrast that with Shen Yu is like changing the expectations of the outcome of the economic system, and you're just like, let's just change the whole economic system.
Yes.
You're not ambitious at all.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really glad that the people in this room are here right now because that really matters to me. And so I guess I'm going to start with just like this what is the actual seed for all of this? And for me, it comes from this place of heartbreak where I actually do not feel that the governments or the nonprofits or any of the institutions out there that are trying to take on the climate crisis are capable of doing it. I believed that in 2008. I don't believe that anymore because of what we've seen happen in the last 4 years. And so I've had this luxury of being able to meet with a lot of really interesting people and ask ideas and try to figure out what would be the feedback loops that would allow us to actually change the system, not from like a let's tear down let's tear down things and build a fire or something, but just a lot more of like how would we practically change everything so that we could have a substantial and long-term and viable way of empowering a movement big enough to do what we actually need to do. And we kind of stumbled into it. You saw this in the video. My wife and I were in this situation that is like almost every American in the United States. We wanted to be doing all these projects because there's no shortage of great ideas out there, and that's what this conference is all about. There's great ideas everywhere. But then we run into these immediate limitations of you have time constraints, and you have time constraints why? Because you're working, because you're paying the bills, right? And so we all know what to do, but we have this situation, and my wife and I we have debt, we have college debt, we have our mortgage debt, but we had a guest bedroom. And so it really kind of transpired when, if I think about going to any community in America and saying, raise your hand if you've got $500 or $25 to support an activist to take on all of these things, that's a tough sell. But if I at the same time go out to all of those communities and say, hey, are there existing resources, guest bedrooms? and are you willing to build community and put these extremely skilled residents into these communities, then that is a completely renewable resource that doesn't increase their carbon footprint. In fact, it cuts it in half. We're building community, we're building gardens, we're building all of these things necessary to build a resilient future. And the best part is that it's not dependent upon this scarcity model or this competitive model where we can just step it up and replicate it. And so, I mean, I can talk all day about the possibilities of what's going on, but there's one more thing that I really want to hit before we kind of open it up to this discussion. When I look at the budget of the average budget of a climate collab winner proposal is between $500,000 and $4 million per year. And this last year, this entire project cost $8,000. Next year, our entire budget is $100,000. We're looking at replicating with an Ivy League school. we're looking at doing all of these things for just like a fraction of the cost, because the only thing that we're doing is using existing resources more creatively and building community in the process. And I really feel that if anything has a chance for like really addressing the climate justice issues that we need to be taking on right now, it's going to have to come from something like that that's decentralized and locally based, instead of being dependent upon big donations from the Sierra Club or whatnot.
So let me bring Carlos into that. Obviously, I think you are probably very much attuned with what Russell and his colleagues are doing. So again, your lessons in community organizing, how can you help these guys build their movement here?
I'm excited. Just from there, so many things I want to say. But I just want to go to one point that I was jotting down, and it's that the way you feel about how difficult is it for folks to fulfill their dreams, we all feel that way. And I want to let you know that you have solidarity on that. So what I'm going with this is that people of color, people that live in low-income areas have been surviving for many years, and they have resilience. And I would like to challenge Transition Lab to the, as you keep growing and exploring, to think about where is that going to? What is that resilience, and what are the learning lessons from it? And so when I'm saying solidarity, I mean I work with folks across race and class, and we are all on the same page. But acknowledging that we have resilience within ourselves is very important, and acknowledging that folks have been surviving on this economic system for many years is very important. So how do you include that into the Transition Lab as an ingredient that could bring greater possibilities of involving many folks in the urban areas in particular? We've done something very similar, or we're trying to explore something very similar to what you're doing in urban areas. And one of the things that we're trying to address is folks have debts. So the exchange is fantastic, without money, just tapping on those resources. But the question is, how do you make a model that is hybrid so that folks may have some of their needs covered, folks with families and children, especially in the Boston area, which is very expensive. And at the same time, I'm learning those lessons to be the leaders of the future on these initiatives that we're working on.
Those are awesome questions. So I think I want to talk about the kind of ethics side of the question first, of that engaging with the downtrodden, or those that aren't really fitting in and embraced in our society. And I worked in the nonprofit sector for a long time. I worked for this nonprofit called Intercambio. It's been really successful, and that's replicating. And with that nonprofit and every other nonprofit I've been involved with, there's this question of, hey, we've got all these ideas for how to integrate and how to get out into the community, which has been the biggest question that you guys have been asking, and I keep hearing over and over in the conferences. We've got these ideas, and now we got to get out there and talk about it. And the truth is that stuff just takes a lot of time. It's really easy to develop an app compared to what it takes to become trained in nonviolent civil disobedience and be in a sit-in. They're totally, entirely different behaviors. And the irony is that our society is really good at training one and not good at all in training the other. And so what I see is this movement of empowering people with the skills to actually go and do that and then spend the time to do that. And so the specific example is in our community in Montrose, there's 60% of the population is on free or reduced lunch, which means that when I was a high school teacher, more than half of the kids in my classroom at any given time only got one meal a day. Some of those were Hispanic, some of those were really poor white. And there's an abundance of people who say, oh, the solution is community gardens. Oh, the solution is healthy food, healthy cooking. But then as soon as you start asking questions of like, well, who's going to actually maintain the community garden, the nonprofits are like, well, we don't have any more money for that. Like they spend all their money identifying the problem, and then where's the action? And so we found ourselves suddenly in this position where nonprofits are coming to us and saying, okay, we've got this centralized thing and we know what the problem is and we've established who the stakeholders are, but we really need people to come in and help us do the footwork, do that groundwork. And I think we're going to become a really reliable resource for that because it doesn't depend on that fluctuating grant market. Or even like another example is AmeriCorps. Like if you compare how many people were in Food Corps and AmeriCorps from Clinton to Bush, it's like this. And so you have programs that disappear all the time. So,
Posse, do you have some thoughts here?
Yes, I was just curious about it's actually a continuation of the previous question, but on the scalability side, and I'm trying to figure out, especially if you have limited resources to play with, how do you focus on the things that will actually scale and grow that, whether it's on the education side or some other front, in a way that is self-sustaining, and not exactly in a for-profit sense, but it is actually self-sustaining economically and it's not dependent. So I hear you describe those things, but how do you actually make it happen?
Great question. First step, we are not a nonprofit. We're an LLC. So in terms of scaling up, we've wanted from the beginning to say we want people to make money so that they can be successful scaling up this just using different economic models. And then the second question is kind of like the result of the program, which is under the existing economic model of America, it looks something like this. There's all these inspired young progressively minded people who go to college and get sustainability degrees and then they graduate with $200,000 of debt and then they can't do the work that they actually want to be doing because they've got to pay off that debt. So they lose both the economic and civic freedom to do what they want to do. And with what we're being able to do with Transition Lab is by creating affordable housing through the skilled resident program, then people can put all that money into either paying off debt, and once they've done that, they've got this economic opportunity to do whatever they want. So a concrete example of that is Jake Hansen, who's here, who's our first student in the full program. We've done the program, and he's got all his needs met for $50 a week. I mean, that's nothing. And that gives him the next 3 or 4 years before he does settle down, get a family, buy a house, to start his own small business, and we're doing that with skilledresident.com. And so it's this way of like powering entrepreneurship with really low risk and high potential. And I think that in terms of like the theme of this conference, which is, you know, crowds and climate, if you give all of the liberal progressive population an incredible amount of debt and put them working for the man, even if those are really good companies, you're not going to have the same kind of creative generative feedback loops as if you are able to say, hey, we've gotten affordable food and housing taken care of you, and we're reducing your carbon footprint, and you have the next 5 years to do what you want to do. And so in the next year, we're taking on projects in the following areas which I know are going to be profitable. First, we're setting up an elder care business where we're using the skilled resident model to meet this huge need that isn't currently being met because it costs so much in the existing system. And there are already people saying, hey, we'll fund it. We've got our houses. You just need to come up with the students for us. Another one is Colby Sawyer College. We just met with them. they met with us and said, hey, we understand that the existing college model for these smaller liberal arts colleges is going to be obsolete in 25 years. And so we want to use aspects of your model, and we'll pay for that. And that's currently going through the system. Farm to dinner business, school garden programs, where these are all programs that the community itself identifies. Because like I mentioned before, it's not an issue of there's not enough good ideas out there. It's an issue of how can we enable those ideas to try themselves out and come to life and then move forward. So, woo! What's up? And replication, yeah. And so what we're trying to do is we're looking at like replicating by 2016 all across the United States. And what I don't mean by that is like building another campus across the street from MIT, because that's totally unfeasible. But in our trip in Boston, we've already been meeting with people in the transition town initiatives and saying, okay, who's got guest bedrooms? Who would be people who would take on these projects? And people are already saying, yeah, I'd want to do that. And so how can we facilitate that kind of thing? And so seeing just kind of this natural evolution for people addressing the needs in their communities and us just providing the means to do it. So,
Valerie, a couple thoughts?
Yeah.
Just actually one quick question. Yeah. So I think about ways of scaling this up and some of the challenges involved, and I wonder if there, with the in the era of social media, if there aren't ways of identifying opportunities, for example, to partner with Airbnb or other short-term housing sites that are Craigslist. I mean, there may be ways, I think, of getting the word out to people who don't need a place for 7 months, but just for a short amount of time. That might also mean that people on more constrained budgets could travel more easily. So is that a direction you're going?
Yes, great question, and kind of the way that market looks, because our curriculum goes the growing season, so we've now got the next couple months of the winter time to really focus on that exact thing. And there's kind of this irony where on one hand there are hundreds if not thousands of people involved in the internet startup world of Airbnb, Couchsurfing.com, where there's been a lot of wisdom and knowledge developed. And then there's another group of people that have already set up like home share exchanges through the nonprofit model. And there's a huge gap between those two models, because one has like this huge investor side of it. Like Airbnb is now valued at over $1 billion. And then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, you have co-housing nonprofits. We met with one in Vermont where their annual budget is $200,000, and it's all coming from states, and it's not going to be ultimately dependable funding source, I believe. And they're taking care of 80 families, basically. So that work is really awesome, and I'm glad that they're doing it. But they look at what we're doing and said, this is great. This is a way that we can scale up, and then we don't have to worry about fighting for grants every year. But because we have been getting this funding from the state, we'll just give you all of our legal documents. And we're like, okay, it's awesome. Because there's a lot of those just kind of technical details to be worked out. And I think that ultimately, if we want to create a sustainability movement, we have to be sustainable about it. And there's this huge gap that I see between like the concrete world of Wall Street and this very ethereal world of, oh, well, if we all had gardens, if this demographic just went away, then everything would be fine, and really seeing how we can bring creative ideas together to bring both of those realms together. And it's a challenge, but it's really exciting. And I want it to be that way because I want it to have the feedback of the economy. So
great. Well, I think we're coming up on 4:30. Sorry we didn't get as much time to have questions from you all, but we probably have time for 1 or 2 questions to any of the panelists or any of the folks here if people have one. Yeah.
I have a question or comment. You don't talk to people at Davos. You talk to like your neighbors. But if you can get the model to work with your neighbors and make it sustainable and keep it going, eventually you will be able to talk to the CEO
Mhm.
It's easy to bring it up from the bottom up. Easier to bring it top down.
Yeah.
Good point.
And to respond to that comment, one of the things that I'm really excited about is the more that I'm honest with what I really believe, the more people are coming out of the woodwork to self-identify themselves. And so recently, a guy named James Branscombe, who's the retired director of analysis at Standard & Poor's, moved to our community and heard about what I was doing and said, I want to be your business market strategy guy. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And the reason that he did that is he said, I see the problems with these other things from this really peculiar perspective that I will never get to. But I really am hoping and feeling that, like, and that's almost like my wish for everybody in this room is be honest with what's going on. And it's really scary at first. But it's been delightful to resign from my job as a public school teacher and then get to have these conversations and I feel like really make the changes that we need to make with even the same people and just doing it in a new creative way. So thank you.
Great. Any other final thoughts, questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Well, how about another round of applause for these winners and our best wishes to them. Great. Woo. It's a wrap.
I do have a question.